The world was trembling. Somewhere deep in the Pacific Ocean, an artificial island floated like an ominous beacon of power. Created by an underground coalition of world governments, it served as the base for an ambitious and terrifying experiment. An experiment designed to neutralize the Hulk once and for all. They called it Project Goliath. For years, the Hulk had been a walking cataclysm. No prison could hold him, no weapon could kill him. Every time humanity tried to contain his rage, he returned stronger, angrier. Entire cities had fallen beneath his unstoppable wrath, and the world's greatest heroes had barely managed to restrain him. The Avengers, the X-Men, even the Fantastic Four had all suffered at his hands. Now the world had grown desperate. Project Goliath was their answer, a plan that had only one possible execution. If brute force could not defeat the Hulk, then perhaps equal force could. And so, they called upon the only being who could match the Hulk's limitless might. They called Robert Reynolds. Robert sat alone in a darkened chamber, staring at his reflection in the polished steel walls. He could hear the murmurs of the government officials outside, debating whether unleashing him was truly worth the risk. He knew what they feared. The Sentry was not just a hero. He was a god of light, a being with the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns. But that power came with a cost. Deep within him lurked his darker half, the Void, a living nightmare waiting to consume him and everything he loved. They were asking him to fight the Hulk, and Robert knew what that meant. It meant carnage. It meant devastation. It meant a battle that could shake the world to its foundations. He sighed and clenched his fists. "It's not going to end well," he whispered. But he also knew that there was no other way. Meanwhile, deep in the Amazon rainforest, Bruce Banner sat in the ruins of a destroyed village, his eyes reflecting the fires still burning around him. He had been on the run for weeks, avoiding the military, avoiding the superheroes, avoiding himself. But they had found him again. He had been ambushed by an elite task force, one carrying experimental weapons meant to suppress his transformations. They had attacked without warning, and for a brief moment, Bruce had tried to hold it in. Then he had heard a child scream. The rage had exploded from within him like a volcanic eruption. Within seconds, the soldiers were nothing but broken bodies, their weapons shattered, their armor crumpled like paper. The Hulk had emerged, and nothing had been able to stop him. And now, as Bruce sat in the wreckage of what had once been a peaceful village, he felt the old despair creeping in. Why do they never stop? Why do they never let me go? The sound of approaching aircraft snapped him out of his thoughts. He looked up, eyes narrowing as a fleet of black military helicopters descended through the clouds. Then he heard the voice, "Banner." The wind howled as the golden figure descended from the sky, radiant and powerful. The Sentry floated above him, his piercing eyes locking onto Bruce with an expression of sorrow. Bruce sighed. "So they sent you this time." Sentry landed gently on the charred earth, his boots barely making a sound. "Do you know why I'm here?" Bruce chuckled bitterly. "They think you can stop me?" He clenched his fists, his muscles already rippling as the transformation threatened to begin. "Haven't they learned by now? Nothing can stop the Hulk." Sentry exhaled. "I don't want to do this, Bruce." "Then walk away." "You know I can't." The two men stood there, frozen in a moment of inevitability. They had fought side by side. They had saved the world together. And yet, the world had turned them against each other. The jungle trembled as Bruce's body convulsed, his skin rippling from the transformation. His breathing grew heavy, deep, guttural. His eyes burned with emerald fury. Sentry's golden aura flared in response, the air around him vibrating with barely contained energy. He knew what was about to happen. The world was about to witness a battle unlike any before. With a final, regretful glance, Robert whispered, "Forgive me." And then the sky exploded as the Hulk lunged. The jungle trembled as Hulk lunged. his massive frame crashing forward with the force of a meteor. The very air seemed to split apart as his fist rocketed toward the Sentry, a single punch carrying enough power to shatter mountains. Sentry barely had time to react. He raised his arms in defense just as the blow connected. Boom! The impact unleashed a shockwave that flattened trees for miles, sending wildlife scattering in all directions. The earth beneath them cracked, and the very sky seemed to ripple from the sheer force. Sentry was hurled backward like a bullet, smashing through multiple hills before finally stopping himself mid-air. He wiped a trickle of golden energy from his lip and exhaled. "So this is how it's going to be," he muttered. Hulk was already charging again, his bellow shaking the heavens. "Fight me, Sentry!" Robert's eyes hardened. He had wanted to avoid this. He had hoped there was another way, but Hulk was beyond reason now. Sentry clenched his fists. His golden aura flared. Fine. He vanished in an instant, moving faster than the eye could follow. One moment he was floating mid-air. The next, he was directly in front of Hulk. Before the green behemoth could react, Sentry drove his fist into Hulk's gut. The force was immeasurable. Hulk's body bent inward for a fraction of a second before he was sent flying backward, his enormous frame crashing through trees, rock formations, and even a distant mountain. The explosion of debris filled the air like a volcanic eruption. Sentry didn't stop. He blurred forward, intercepting Hulk mid-flight with another devastating punch, sending him spiraling in the opposite direction. Then again. Sentry struck with pinpoint accuracy, each blow carrying enough force to demolish entire cities. But Hulk was not so easily beaten. With a monstrous roar, he caught Sentry's next punch with both hands, his massive muscles bulging with rage. The very air around them crackled as their power clashed. Hulk's grip tightened. Sentry gritted his teeth as he felt the force trying to crush his knuckles. Then Hulk yanked him forward and slammed his forehead into Sentry's face. The explosion of force sent out a pulse that parted the clouds above them. Sentry reeled, momentarily dazed, and Hulk capitalized. He grabbed Sentry by the leg and swung him like a weapon, slamming him repeatedly into the ground, carving massive craters into the earth. Boom, boom, boom. Each impact made the continent tremble. On the final slam, Hulk released Sentry and let his body rocket into the sky. But Sentry was already recovering. He stopped himself mid-air and wiped his mouth. "All right," he growled. No more holding back. He clenched his fists and suddenly, his entire body ignited with blinding golden energy. His power surged, warping the atmosphere around him. The sun itself seemed to dim in comparison to his radiance. Hulk growled, sensing the shift. His rage deepened. His body grew larger, his muscles more defined. The ground beneath him cracked as his strength surged. They both knew what was coming. This was it. With an ear-shattering boom, they collided again, this time with everything they had. The sky turned white as energy erupted from their clash. Mountains shattered, oceans rippled. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. Fists flew at speeds beyond comprehension. Sentry struck with the force of exploding stars. Hulk retaliated with rage-driven power that defied logic. Each blow tore apart the land beneath them, reshaping the battlefield itself. The battle raged for hours. Sentry poured every ounce of his limitless power into the fight, but Hulk only grew stronger. The longer the fight dragged on, the more unstoppable he became. Sentry's breath grew ragged. He was powerful, perhaps the most powerful being on Earth, but he was not limitless. His energy had a threshold, and he was reaching it. Hulk, however, showed no signs of stopping. With a deafening roar, Hulk caught Sentry's next punch and twisted his arm. Sentry gasped in pain as his wrist snapped with an audible crack. Before he could react, Hulk delivered an earth-shaking uppercut to his ribs. Then another. Sentry coughed up golden energy as he felt his body failing. He had never been beaten like this before. One final punch, delivered with all the force of Hulk's escalating rage, sent Sentry crashing into the ground, forming a crater so deep it nearly reached the Earth's mantle. The world went silent. Hulk stood over the fallen Sentry, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His green skin was bruised, his body damaged, but his rage still burned. Sentry lay motionless in the crater. His golden glow flickered weakly. He had nothing left. It was over. Hulk lifted his fists to the sky and bellowed in triumph. The strongest one had won. The world would remember this battle for eternity.